Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for returning again to the Healthy Tech Talk Podcast Network. Hey, I got a suggestion for you. I want to acknowledge the person that is really responsible for bringing this show out into the open. He's a fellow by the name of Todd Cochran. He's in Hawaii. Please check out his show. I think you'll be delighted. I never miss an episode of Todd's show. His address is www.geeknewscentral.com. I started listening to him a year ago, and instantly I was hooked. Good guy. So check out his show as well. And he's actually helping us to bring this podcast show to you. So Todd, thank you so much, my friend. So today's theme is going to be about call centers and how you can get the most out of the call before you phone the call center. There's some proprietary stuff that you need to go through before you make the call. And when we get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, I'll have a list of about 11 things that you should do in order to take the stress off. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that the call center is going to have before you make the call. So it's very, very interesting. When you work at a call center, you get such a mixture of fascinating, stressful, interesting, weird, wonderful, technically challenging. It really puts you in a pressure cooker situation where you got to think on your feet, you got to work with the latest cutting edge technology, and then you have to bring it to a human being and present it in a language that all of the human beings that are phoning in can understand. Some are basic computer users, some are medium computer users, some are very, very technical. But remember, when you phone into a call center, they are chartered by the manufacturer to start troubleshooting at the very basic levels. Even when they kind of assume or they know that some of the basic stuff, it's maybe you're not experiencing that, but they still have to step through that. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. And I'll give you some fun things. So techies, if you're listening, you get a real charge out of this. There was a call that came into our call center when I was there. And a woman phoned and she said, I have an inkjet printer. That means they have, the 3 cartridges. And she said, my inkjet printer, no matter what I do, will not print yellow. And the technician, which was a very good technician, he worked with her for about 45 minutes. And finally she said, I've run out of paper. Do you mind if I go get some other paper? He said, no, not at all. Go ahead. She said, do you mind if I put in white paper this time? White. He said, well, no. He said, what color were you using, by the way? She said, yellow. So, guess what? Yeah, question should have been asked. I'm using yellow ink. I'm using yellow paper. Why can't I see anything? So you see the things that not only clients go through, but technicians go through. Yeah, the question wasn't even brought up. One assumed the other, and the other assumed one, right? So, fascinating stuff. Now, here's another thing for you techies out there, and this is an example that would probably only happen 1 in a million cases. There was what they call a monojet printer. That means a laser jet that only printed in black and white. That's it. Black ink on white paper. And the customer phoned and she said, the printer is printing in color. Now, she gave the model number, the serial number. This didn't happen to me, but it happened to one of our colleagues. And he said, no, that's wrong. There's no way that this printer could ever print in color. And this customer was adamant. She dug in her heels. She said, look, I don't care what you're saying. This printer is printing in color, period. So he put her on hold, and then he came back and worked with her for a little while. And finally, he had to go see the engineering department. And he said to the engineering department, is this possible? They said, no, it is not. So it was a real difficult situation. You don't want to go back to the customer and say, you're fibbing. We don't believe you, because obviously it was a statement that it was printing in color. Here's what happened. Oh, technophiles, you're going to love this. What's the chances of this happening? Here is the monojet, laser jet, the prints in black and white, right here. And the intake fan is right on the right-hand side of it, and they have a color printer right next to it on the right-hand side, and its exhaust fan is on the left-hand side. Now, on this particular color jet printer, one of the cartridges blew up, and on a color jet printer, it's dry ink. right? And the ink was forced through the exhaust fan of the ColorJet printer into the pickup fan of the black and white printer, and now you have a black and white printer printing in color. Did that drive us crazy? I'm telling you, I think they were pulling out their hair. But that's and after a couple of hours, of course, they discovered this. But I mean, 1,000,000 to 1 shot. So in a call center, you are going to experience some of the most interesting calls that you could ever experience. Now I'll give you another one. A new user came in, and let's face it, we are all new users at some time. We just don't pop out of the womb being technicians, okay? So I have a real soft spot in my heart for new users and users that, medium users. So the call came in, and the customer said, I'm trying to, negotiate my window screen. And the client said, or the technician said, well, just click your mouse on the screen. And you'd heard click, click, and then it didn't work. He said, well, there's nothing happening. And the technician went through this process 4 or 5 times. Just click your mouse on the screen, on this area of the screen. And you'd hear click, 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 and the clicks grew louder and more frustrating as the call progressed. And so what had actually happened, see how very, very important communication is? The customer took their mouse, because that's exactly the directions they were given. And they took their mouse and they clicked it on their screen. Well, they were following orders from the technician. So you heard in the background a click, 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 and that's the mouse hitting the glass screen or the plastic on the screen on their monitor. So it's very, very important that both sides have crystal clear communication. And that's why I felt that I wanted to put a podcast together to cover basics, because, when we cover the basics, we cover most of the things that are going to drive your stress level through the roof. So when you listen to the last half of this podcast, you're going to say, oh, I didn't think you had to do that, and I didn't think you had to do that. These are all very important steps to prepare yourself before you phone the call center. As 3 years working at a call center, I have seen a lot of unusual things. And I've also, in my head, I thought, the technician at the call center could have done a better job of asking this question and then asking this question and bringing it all together. And I brought 11 things to you in the podcast, and I'll put the show notes on the notes of the call as well, or on the show. So you can go down the list, and you can print this list out before you phone the call center. So I hope you enjoy this particular podcast, and come back and see us again. We have got some great shows lined up for you. So every show is going to have a theme, and my lovely wife, Patricia, is going to be joining us for quite a few of them. It just depends on her schedule. But this is Rick Hahn saying thank you for coming. Oh, don't forget to check out Todd Cochran's show as well, and then come back and see us again for another show of Healthy TikTok. Take care. Bye-bye.